It was the quiet that hit me first. You know, the kind of quiet that's so loud it hurts your ears. The apartment was clean, too clean. His worn-out denim jacket wasn't slung over the chair. His stack of Philip K. Dick paperbacks had vanished from the bookshelf. Even his stupid, chipped coffee mug was gone from its spot by the machine. Then I saw it. On the cold granite of the kitchen counter, sitting all by itself, was his key. No note, no dramatic final text, nothing, just the key. And next to it, the single most heartbreaking thing I've ever seen. Our half-finished grocery list. It just stopped mid-word. I didn't cry. I just stood in the middle of the living room, feeling the silence press in on me. It felt like I'd walked into the wrong life, like I was an intruder in the clean, orderly museum of a relationship that had just died. My brain is a funny thing. It's protecting me, I think. Instead of letting me feel the full, crushing weight of that empty apartment, it just started the movie. Right from the beginning, 3 years ago. And we were good, right? I'm not crazy, I know we were. Caspian's love wasn't the kind you see in movies, the kind my friends were always posting about. It was quiet, solid, and practical. I remember this one time I had a horrible flu, like couldn't get out of bed sick. He didn't just bring me soup, he made a spreadsheet. A literal spreadsheet with my temperature readings, medication times, and a column for notes on hydration levels. He'd come in every few hours, gently wake me up, and say, "Okay, paracetamol time," with this serious look on his face. It wasn't romantic in a hearts and flowers way, but God, I felt so safe, so cared for. He wasn't the guy who would send a dozen roses to my office. He was the guy who would show up at 9 p.m. with a hot container of pad thai because he knew I was working late and had probably forgotten to eat. He wouldn't write me poetry, but he'd spend an entire Saturday meticulously reorganizing my hard drive and installing more RAM because I'd mentioned offhand my laptop was slow. That was his language, acts of service, quiet, unwavering support. But then, I don't know, my world got bigger or maybe just louder. My friend Jenna got engaged and her fiancé flew her to Italy for the weekend. Just because, my colleague Maya would come in on Mondays talking about the surprise Michelin star dinner her boyfriend had booked. My Instagram feed became this endless, glossy highlight reel of grand gestures. I'd scroll through it at night, lying next to a sleeping Caspian, the blue light of my phone illuminating pictures of champagne flutes against Parisian skylines, and this sour, acidic feeling would bubble up in my chest. It felt like everyone else was living in a movie and I was stuck in a documentary. Boyfriend goals, spoiled, blessed. And slowly, like a drip of poison, it started to seep in. My solid, dependable love started to feel boring. My security started to feel like settling. One evening, I came home to find he'd fixed the squeaky hinge on the bathroom door that had been driving me insane for months. He was so pleased with himself. A year earlier, I would have kissed him. That night, I just remember thinking, this is it. This is my romance for the week. A fixed door hinge. The first time I said it out loud, I thought it was just a joke. He'd spent a whole afternoon setting up a new smart home system for our apartment. He was like a kid on Christmas morning, showing me how I could control the lights and thermostat from my phone. He was so proud, his face all lit up. I watched him, and instead of sharing his joy, I just heard this cold, sharp voice come out of my own mouth. God, Caspian, you're an amazing systems analyst, but a pretty terrible boyfriend, you know that. He just laughed. But it wasn't a real laugh, you know? It was that tight, brittle smile he got when he didn't know what else to do. His shoulders slumped just a little, I saw it. I registered it for a split second, but I chose to ignore it. I laughed too, punching his arm playfully to show it was all in good fun. Our little inside joke. Except it was only a joke to me. For him, I think it was the first crack in the foundation. That joke became my new favorite bit. It was like a drug, a cheap, easy high. It gave me this weird, twisted sense of power, a way to deflect the ugly envy I felt when I saw my friends' lives. If I was the one making the joke, then I was in control of the narrative. I wasn't the girl with the boring boyfriend, I was the sharp, witty girl who was in on the joke. At first, it was just between us, a steady erosion of our private moments. Our second anniversary came around, and he gave me this beautiful, custom-bound collection of my favorite short stories. It was thoughtful, personal, and so incredibly him. He'd even commissioned a local artist to design the cover, a subtle nod to a conversation we'd had months ago. I held it, and for a moment, a wave of genuine warmth washed over me. The old me, the grateful me, surfaced. But then an image of Chloe's Instagram story from the week before flashed in my mind, her and her fiancé, champagne glasses clinking in a hot air balloon. And the poison came out. "This is so sweet, Cass," I said, tracing the cover. "It's not exactly a surprise trip to the Maldives, but it's intellectually stimulating, I guess." I saw the light in his eyes just go out. It wasn't a flicker, it was like someone flipped a switch. He physically pulled back just a fraction of an inch. His hands, which had presented the gift with such quiet pride, now looked clumsy and unsure. He didn't say anything, he never did. He just gave that tight, brittle smile and started clearing away the dinner plates with a rigid mechanical efficiency. His silence felt like acceptance, but it wasn't. It was him, quietly packing away another piece of his affection for me, storing it somewhere I could no longer reach. Then I took the show on the road. I made him my running gag, my party trick. We'd be at a friend's barbecue and someone would ask what we did for Valentine's Day. I'd seize the spotlight. Oh my god, you guys, Caspian was so romantic, I'd say, my voice dripping with performative sarcasm. He spent the entire day optimizing our Wi-Fi router for faster streaming. Can you believe the passion? I'm a lucky, lucky girls. And people would laugh, our friends, his friends, they'd all laugh this slightly uncomfortable, slightly pitying laugh. And I'd preen under the attention, feeling witty and important. I deliberately avoided looking at him. If I had, I would have seen his face tightening, his jaw clenching. I would have seen him staring down at his plate, making himself smaller, just waiting for the moment to pass. Everyone told me what a good sport he was. Aurora's hilarious and Caspian is just so chill about it. He wasn't chill, he was eroding. I was the one holding the sandblaster. For my birthday, I dropped 1,000 hints about a specific purse I wanted. Instead, he bought me a top-of-the-line DSLR camera. You're always saying you want to get better at photography, he said, his eyes hopeful. I opened it in front of my family. I remember forcing a smile and saying, oh, a project, how thoughtful, he's always trying to improve me. My own mother flinched. I remember one night we were at a pub quiz with my work colleagues. My boss laughed at one of my answers and said, Aurora, you're such a romantic. Without missing a beat, I gestured to Caspian and said, well, one of us has to be. If I left the romance up to this one, our idea of a big night out would be recalibrating the TV's color settings. The table roared. I felt a tiny, sharp pang of guilt as I saw the flicker of hurt in his eyes, but the sound of my colleague's laughter was louder, more immediate. It drowned everything else out. Later that night in bed, he was quiet. I asked him what was wrong. He just shook his head, his back to me. I'm tired, that's all. He was tired. God, he must have been so tired. It wasn't just tired from work. He was tired of being the punchline. He was tired of wearing the good sport costume I'd tailored for him. He was tired of his genuine efforts being twisted into evidence for the prosecution in the case I was building against him. He was still lying next to me, but he was already gone. I just hadn't noticed the empty space he was leaving behind. The last straw. It's funny you never see it coming, do you? You just keep piling on more and more weight, convinced the camel's back is infinitely strong that it will just keep bending. It was our friend's engagement party, Liam and Sarah. It was a big deal, a proper catered event at a nice venue downtown. Caspian, to his credit, really tried that night. He left work an hour early to pick up my dry cleaning so I wouldn't have to rush. In the Uber on the way there, he handed me a small, warm flask, ginger tea. Your dress is beautiful, Rory, he'd said, but it looks thin, I don't want you to get cold. He was looking at me with such open, honest affection. And I just remember thinking, God, this is so practical. The party was in full swing. Champagne was flowing, fairy lights were twinkling, and everyone was high on love and expensive canapes. Liam got up and gave this incredibly sweet speech about Sarah, and then she told a story about how Liam had secretly learned Italian for 6 months just so he could propose to her properly on their trip to Rome. The whole room just melted, then somehow all eyes turned to us. We were the other long-term, serious couple in the group. Sarah, flushed with happiness and champagne, turned to me, her eyes sparkling. Aurora, you have to tell us, what's the most romantic thing Caspian's ever done? He's so quiet, he must be one of those secretly super romantic types. The alcohol, the audience, the blinding spotlight of comparison, it was the perfect storm. I could have told them about the spreadsheet when I was sick. I could have told them about the first edition book. I could have told them about 100 small, solid, real things that were the bedrock of our life together. Instead, I chose to be a comedian. I let out a high, tinkling laugh that felt fake even to my own ears. Oh God, the most romantic thing? I put a hand to my forehead dramatically, playing to the crowd. It's so hard to choose. I mean, do I go with the time he defragmented my hard drive as a birthday surprise, or the time he recocked the bathtub for Valentine's? A few people chuckled nervously. I was just warming up. No, I know, I said, leaning in as if sharing a huge secret. It has to be the time he made me a bookmark. I felt Caspian go completely still beside me. He had made me that bookmark. It was from a piece of driftwood we found on our first trip together, and he'd spent a whole weekend sanding it, oiling it, and carving my initial into it. It was in the book on my nightstand at that very moment. I mean, it's a very sturdy bookmark, I continued, my voice dripping with condescension. He found this piece of wood, you guys, and he worked on it for days, so much effort. I paused, letting the implication hang in the air, then I turned to Sarah and gestured wildly at her hand. And you know, when you're standing next to Sarah's diamond, which I'm pretty sure can be seen from space, it really puts things in perspective. You learn to appreciate that kind of spiritual wealth. The laughter died like a car engine seizing. But I was too far gone. I delivered the final, fatal blow. Because honestly, with Caspian, that's the only kind of equity you're building. He's a great guy if you're not into, things. Or ambition or grand gestures of any kind. Silence, it wasn't a funny, awkward silence. It was a dead, horrified silence. The air just went out of the room. In that moment, I wasn't witty Aurora. I was just cruel. I had taken something he had made for me with his hands, something personal and full of memory, and I had held it up in front of everyone we knew and declared it, and by extension him, worthless. I finally dared to look at him. He wasn't looking at the floor, he wasn't red-faced or angry, he was looking right at me, and his eyes were completely, utterly calm. It was the calm of a doctor who has just confirmed a terminal diagnosis, the calm of a decision finally made. There was no anger, no sadness, not even disappointment left in them. There was just nothing, nothing for me. He had already left, his body was just waiting to catch up. He didn't say a word, not to me anyway. He just broke that terrifyingly calm eye contact, turned to Liam and Sarah and gave them a small, tight smile. Congratulations, you two. I'm sorry, I'm not feeling very well. I think I need to get some air. His voice was perfectly level, polite even. He placed his champagne flute down on a passing tray with a steady hand. He walked away, he didn't look back. I just stood there, frozen in the wreckage I'd created. The silence was deafening, filled with the unspoken judgment of our friends. I felt a hot flush of shame creep up my neck, but it was quickly replaced by a surge of indignant anger. How could he do that? How could he just walk out and leave me there to face the awkwardness alone? He was making a scene, he was being dramatic. I stayed for another 20 minutes, trying to pretend everything was fine, laughing a little too loudly, but the party was over for me. The air was thick with it. I made my excuses and got an Uber home alone, the anger simmering the whole way. I rehearsed the fight in my head. I was going to tell him how he'd embarrassed me, how he couldn't take a joke, how he was being overly sensitive. I sent him a text from the car. Seriously, you just walked out, way to make your point, very dramatic. No reply, then another, are you just going to ignore me now? That's really mature, Caspian. Delivered, not read. When I got to the apartment, it was dark. I called his name, nothing. I figured he'd gone to his brother's place to cool off. Fine. Let him pout. I got ready for bed, fuming, still convinced I was the wronged party. I woke up the next morning feeling a little less angry and a little more uneasy. His side of the bed was cold and undisturbed. I grabbed my phone, my messages still showed as delivered. I tried to call him, it went straight to voicemail. That's when the first real flicker of panic started. I opened WhatsApp to message him again, and I saw it, just his name and a blank profile picture. He'd blocked me. My heart started hammering against my ribs. I scrambled to Instagram. I couldn't find his profile. Blocked. Facebook. Blocked. He hadn't just gone to his brother's to cool off. He had systematically, methodically, and silently executed a complete digital amputation. There was no screaming match, no tearful confrontation, no chance for me to argue or defend or even apologize. He hadn't just walked out of the party. He had walked out of our life, and then he'd locked the door, changed the locks, and boarded up the windows from the inside. He just pressed delete. For 3 days, I lived in a state of suspended disbelief, fueled by a cocktail of panic and self-righteous anger. I kept checking my phone, expecting a call or a text, an email, something, an explanation, an argument. I would have welcomed an argument. An argument would have meant there was still something to fight about. But there was only silence, a vast, echoing digital void where he used to be. On the fourth day, the panic won. I swallowed my pride, my fingers trembling as I called Sarah. I tried to sound casual, breezy even. Hey, so weird question, have you heard from Caspian? He's gone totally off the grid and I'm starting to get a little worried. There was a long pause on the other end of the lines. So long that I thought the call had dropped. Then Sarah's voice, flat and tired, Aurora, just my name, and in that single word I heard the verdict. What? I asked, my own voice small. What did you expect? She said, and there was no malice in it, just a profound, weary sadness. Honestly, what did you think was going to happen? It was a joke, Sarah, I pleaded, the words sounding hollow and pathetic even to me. A stupid drunken joke, he's being so extreme. Was it though? She shot back, and now there was a little heat. Was it a joke the time at the pub or at your birthday dinner? Or the dozen other times you've used him as your personal stand-up routine? We all just stopped finding it funny a long time ago, Aurora. It was just uncomfortable. And it was cruel. I had nothing to say. The screen in my mind was replaying every single one of those moments, but this time the laugh track was gone. All I could see was his face. Then Sarah delivered the final blow, the line that shattered the last of my delusions. Her voice softened, turning from anger to something like pity. He drove me home once a few months ago after that game night at your place. You'd spent half the night making fun of his new running shoes. He was so quiet in the car. And then he just said, I don't think I can ever do anything right for her. Everything I am, everything I like, it's all just a joke to her. She took a shaky breath. He wasn't angry at you at the party, Aurora. I saw his face. He was just done. He gave up. And now the movie is over. The credits have rolled. And I'm just sitting here in the dark, empty theater of our apartment. Sarah's words are the only soundtrack playing on a loop. He gave up, he gave up, he gave up. He didn't leave in a fit of rage. His departure wasn't a power move. It was an act of self-preservation. It was the long, slow, logical conclusion to a story I wrote myself. I was the one who handed him the script, day after day, filled with lines about how he wasn't enough. And eventually, he just believed me. I pick up my phone. My thumb hovers over his contact, the one with no picture. It's useless, I know he's blocked me. But my fingers have their own memory. They type out a message into the void. I'm sorry, you were enough, you were always more than enough. I don't send it. Then a wave of that old, familiar anger washes over me. Why couldn't he just fight? Why couldn't he yell at me, tell me I was being a bitch, give me a chance to fix it? Why did he have to be so goddamn quiet, so final? It was so cold, so clinical, but the anger fades as quickly as it comes, leaving only the hollow ache, because I know the answer. He did fight. He fought every time he swallowed one of my jokes and stayed. He fought every time he tried to show me he loved me in his own steady, quiet way. And I just threw it back in his face until there was nothing left to fight with. I'm stuck. I'm trapped in this endless, nauseating loop of replaying every scene, every word, every missed opportunity to just shut my mouth and see the man who was right in front of me. One minute, I'm convinced he's a monster for leaving like this. The next, I'm drowning in a tidal wave of self-loathing so intense it feels like I can't breathe. I hate him, I miss him. It was all my fault, he overreacted. I just sit on the floor replaying the movie. The scene at the party, his eyes, that awful empty calm, again and again and again. Waiting for an ending that will never change.